The darkness wrapped around us like a secret. His fingers found mine in the space between our seats, and I didn't pull away. The movie flickered on the screen, but all I could focus on was the warmth of his touch, the way his thumb traced slow circles against my palm. My heart hammered against my ribs as he leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered. I turned my head, meeting his gaze in the dim light, and nodded. What happened next changed everything. Before we dive into this story, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means everything, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The argument with Wayne started over something stupid. Dishes in the sink, or maybe it was the way he'd been glued to his phone all evening, responding to work emails while I sat across from him at dinner. Either way, the tension had been building. For weeks, and tonight it finally boiled over. "I'm going out," I announced, grabbing my purse from the counter. Wayne barely looked up from his laptop. "Fine, don't wait up." The dismissiveness in his voice stung more than I expected. 15 years of marriage, and this is what we'd become. Two people sharing a house, but living separate lives. I slammed the door harder than necessary and found myself driving aimlessly through Dallas, the city lights blurring through tears. I refused to shed. The movie theater appeared like an oasis in the darkness. I'd always loved the escape that films provided, the way they could transport you somewhere else entirely. Tonight, I needed that more than ever. The latest thriller was showing, something with explosions and a plot I'd probably forget by morning. Perfect. The lobby smelled of buttered popcorn and possibility. I bought my ticket, declined the overpriced snacks, and made my way to Theater 7. The previews had already started, leaving the space bathed in that familiar twilight glow. I chose a seat near the back, settling into the plush fabric with a sigh. That's when I noticed him. He was sitting 2 seats away, close enough that I caught the subtle scent of his cologne, something warm and woodsy that made me want to lean closer. In the flickering light from the screen, I could make out strong features. Dark hair, slightly tousled, and when he turned to glance at me, eyes that seemed to see right through my carefully constructed facade. "Good choice," he murmured, nodding, toward the screen where the opening credits rolled. His voice was low, intimate despite the distance between us. "We'll see," I replied, surprised by how steady my own voice sounded. The movie began, but I found myself stealing glances at my unexpected companion. There was something magnetic about him, a quiet confidence that drew me in despite every rational thought telling me to focus on the screen. When he shifted in his seat, his arm brushing against the armrest between us, electricity shot through me. 20 minutes into the film, during a particularly intense scene, I felt the lightest touch against my hand, his fingers just barely grazing mine where they rested on the armrest. I should have pulled away, should have created distance. Instead, I let my pinky finger brush against his, the contact sending warmth spiraling through my chest. The movie continued, but the real drama was happening between us. Each touch became bolder, his thumb tracing along my knuckles, my fingers intertwining with his. The darkness gave us courage, anonymity that felt both thrilling and dangerous. "This is crazy," I whispered during a quiet moment in the film. He turned to face me, his expression serious. "Do you want me to stop?" I searched his eyes, looking for something I couldn't name. What I found was desire, yes, but also understanding. He knew this was about more than just attraction. This was about feeling alive again, about remembering that I was more than just Wayne's wife, or someone's mother, or the woman who'd slowly disappeared into the routine of daily life. "No," I breathed. His smile was soft, reassuring. "I'm Nolan. Charlotte." The exchange felt weighted with possibility. On screen, the protagonist was racing through shadowy streets, but here in our private bubble, time seemed suspended. Nolan's hand moved to rest on my thigh, the heat of his palm burning through the thin fabric of my dress. I bit my lip to stifle a gasp, my body responding in ways it hadn't in months. "You're beautiful," he murmured, leaning closer until his lips nearly brushed my ear. "Your husband doesn't know how lucky he is." The mention of Wayne sent a jolt of guilt through me, but it was quickly overwhelmed by something stronger, need. I turned my head, bringing my lips dangerously close to his. Maybe he doesn't need to know. Nolan's intake of breath was sharp. His hand tightened slightly on my leg, fingers pressing into the soft flesh. "Are you sure?" Instead of answering with words, I closed the distance between us. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but when I didn't pull away, he deepened it. His lips were warm and sure, moving against mine with a skill that made my head spin. I could taste mint and something uniquely him, could feel the slight roughness of stubble against my skin. When we broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. The movie continued around us, but we might as well have been alone in the universe. Nolan's eyes searched mine, and whatever he saw there seemed to give him permission to continue. His hand slid higher on my thigh, fingers dancing along the edge where my dress had ridden up. I pressed my lips together to keep from making a sound, as heat pooled in my core. It had been so long since anyone had touched me like this, with intention, with desire that felt genuine rather than obligatory. "Tell me to stop," he whispered against my neck, his lips grazing the sensitive skin there. "Don't stop," I heard myself say, the words escaping before I could second-guess them. His response was immediate. His mouth found the hollow of my throat, pressing soft kisses there while his hand continued its exploration. I gripped the armrest so tightly my knuckles went white, my body responding to his touch in ways that should have embarrassed me but only served to fuel the fire building inside. The couple in front of us was completely absorbed in the action, on screen. Behind us, the theater was mostly empty, giving us a privacy that felt both stolen and precious. Nolan's fingers traced patterns on my inner thigh, each touch bringing him closer to where I needed him most. "You're trembling," he observed, pulling back to look at me. "It's been a while," I admitted, the honesty surprising me. Something shifted in his expression then, becoming gentler, more attentive. "Then let me take care of you." His hand moved with purpose now, sliding beneath the hem of my dress. I had to bite down on my lip to keep from crying out as he found his mark, his touch light but sure. He moved with infinite patience, as if he had all the time in the world to bring me to the edge and back again. My breathing became ragged as he worked, each stroke sending shockwaves through my system. I was dimly aware of the explosions and car chases happening on screen, but they paled in comparison to the fireworks he was creating in my body. When I finally reached my peak, the sensation crashed over me like a wave, leaving me boneless and shaking in my seat. Nolan held me steady as I came down, his arm around my shoulders, his lips pressing soft kisses to my temple. "Better?" he asked, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Much," I managed, still trying to catch my breath. We stayed like that for the remainder of the film, his arm around me, my head resting on his shoulder. It felt natural, comfortable in a way that should have been impossible given what had just happened. When the credits began to roll and the lights came up, reality started to seep back in. "I should go," I said, though I made no move to leave. "I know." He pulled out his phone, quickly typing something before showing me the screen. His number. "In case you want to do this again. Properly next time." I stared at the digits, memorizing them even as I shook my head. "I can't. I'm married." "So was I once." His voice was gentle, understanding. "Sometimes we need to remember who we are underneath all the roles we play." I took his phone, entering my number before I could talk myself out of it. "I need time. To think. Take all the time you need." He stood, offering me his hand. "But Charlotte? You deserve to feel alive. Don't forget that." The drive home passed in a blur. Wayne was already asleep when I slipped into our bedroom, and I was grateful for the darkness that hid my flushed cheeks and swollen lips. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, reliving every moment in that theater. The next morning arrived, with harsh sunlight and the sound of Wayne's alarm. He rolled out of bed with his usual grunt, padding to the bathroom without so much as a glance in my direction. I listened to the shower run, the electric razor buzz, the routine sounds of a marriage on autopilot. "Coffee's ready," he called from downstairs, the same words he'd said every morning for the past 5 years. I found him at the kitchen table, already dressed for work, scrolling through his phone while mechanically eating toast. He looked up when I entered, offering me the distracted smile that had replaced real affection somewhere along the way. "How was your movie?" he asked, though his attention was already back on his screen. "Good," I replied, pouring myself coffee with hands that only shook slightly. "Entertaining." "That's nice." He stood, grabbing his briefcase and dropping a perfunctory kiss on my cheek. "I'll be late tonight. Johnson wants to review the quarterly reports." "Of course he does." The words slipped out before I could stop them, tinged with more bitterness than I'd intended. Wayne paused at the door, actually looking at me for the first time all morning. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Just tired." He nodded, satisfied with the easy explanation, and left me alone with my guilt and the lingering memory of Nolan's touch. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. I tried to lose myself in routine, laundry, grocery shopping, the mindless tasks that usually filled my hours. But everything reminded me of the night before. The feel of the steering wheel under my hands brought back the memory of gripping the theater armrest. The scent of fabric softener reminded me of Nolan's cologne. Even the simple act of reaching for something on a high shelf sent an echo of sensation through my body. By afternoon, I'd checked my phone at least 20 times, waiting for a text that never came. Part of me was relieved. This was better. Safer. I could pretend last night was an aberration, a momentary lapse that would never be repeated. But another part of me, a part I'd thought was dead and buried, whispered that I was lying to myself. Was folding laundry when my phone finally buzzed. My heart leaped, then sank when I saw it was just a spam message about car insurance. I set the phone aside with more force than necessary, angry at myself for hoping. That's when I noticed the paper. It had been slipped under the front door at some point during the day, a simple white envelope with my name written in elegant handwriting. I picked it up with trembling fingers, recognizing the careful script, even though I'd only seen it once before. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a brief message. Charlotte, thank you for last night. I meant what I said. You deserve to feel alive. I'll be at the Fairmont Hotel bar tonight at 8 if you want to continue what we started. If not, I understand. Either way, don't let anyone make you forget how extraordinary you are. Nolan. I read the note 3 times before it fully sank in. He'd found out where I lived. The thought should have terrified me, but instead it sent a thrill of excitement through my veins. He'd taken the initiative, made it easy for me to make a choice without having to be the one to reach out first. 8 o'clock. That gave me 4 hours to decide whether I was going to destroy my marriage or save what was left of my sanity. I spent those 4 hours in a state of internal warfare. 1 minute I was certain I would delete his number and pretend last night never happened. The next, I was standing in front of my closet, wondering what one wore to commit adultery. At 7:30, I was still in my jeans and t-shirt, having changed clothes 4 times already. Wayne had called to say he'd be working even later than expected, which meant I had the entire evening to myself. It felt like a sign, though I wasn't sure if it was pointing toward salvation or damnation. At 7:45, I was in my car, engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles were white, I could still turn back, could go inside, pour a glass of wine, and spend the evening watching mindless television like any other Wednesday night. At 8:15, I was walking into the Fairmont Hotel. The bar was dimly lit, all dark wood and leather, the kind of place where secrets were currency and discretion was assumed. I spotted Nolan immediately. He was sitting at a corner table wearing dark jeans and a button-down shirt that brought out the blue in his eyes. When he saw me, his face lit up with a smile that made my knees weak. "You came," he said, standing to pull out my chair. I almost didn't. I sat down, hyper-aware of everything. The warmth of his hand as it briefly touched my shoulder, the way he smelled like that same intoxicating cologne, the weight of his gaze as he settled across from me. What changed your mind? I considered. Lying, offering some sanitized version of the truth that would make me seem less desperate, less hungry for what he was offering. Instead, I met his eyes and gave him honesty. I haven't felt like myself in a long time. Last night, for the first time in years, I remembered who I used to be. He nodded slowly, understanding flickering in his expression. I know that feeling. The waitress appeared, breaking the intensity of the moment. I ordered wine, something red and bold that I normally wouldn't have chosen. Nolan stuck with whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light as he lifted it in a mock toast. "To remembering," he said. "To remembering," I echoed, clinking my glass against his. The wine was excellent, warming me from the inside out and loosening the tight knot of anxiety in my chest. We talked about everything and nothing. Books, movies, places we'd traveled, dreams we'd abandoned along the way. It was easy, natural, the kind of conversation I'd forgotten was possible. "Tell me about your marriage," he said during a lull, his voice careful. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What's to tell? We met in college, got married right after. Graduation. Wayne was driven, ambitious. I thought that was sexy then." I took another sip of wine. 15 years later, his ambition is still the most important thing in his life. I just happen to live in the same house. "When did you stop fighting for it?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I don't know. Somewhere between the 3rd promotion he celebrated without me and the 5th anniversary dinner he forgot completely. I set my glass down harder than necessary. "When did you stop fighting for yours?" "When I realized I was in love with the idea of her rather than the reality. She was beautiful, successful, everything I thought I wanted, but we never actually liked each other much." He smiled ruefully. "The divorce was the most civil conversation we'd had in years. Do you miss it, being married?" "I miss the idea of partnership, the possibility of building something with someone." His eyes found mine across the table. "What about you? Do you miss being happy?" The question hung between us, heavy with implication. I finished my wine before answering. I'd forgotten what happy felt like until last night. Something shifted. In his expression then became hungrier, more intense. "Charlotte," the way he said my name sent heat spiraling through me. I was already lost. Had been from the moment I walked through the hotel doors, but hearing the want in his voice sealed my fate completely. "I know this is complicated," he continued, leaning forward. "I know you have a life, obligations, a husband who probably loves you even if he's forgotten how to show it. But I also know that life is short and opportunities like this don't come along often. "What exactly are you offering?" I asked, though I was pretty sure I already knew the answer. Honesty, attention, the chance to feel like a woman instead of just a wife. He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. "I'm not asking you to leave your husband or blow up your life. I'm just asking for tonight. Tonight. One night to feel alive again, to remember what it was like to be desired, to be the center of someone's attention." It seemed like such a small thing, and yet I knew it would change everything. "One night," I repeated, testing the words. "One night," he confirmed, "and then tomorrow you can decide if you want another." I looked down at our joined hands, his thumb stroking across my knuckles in the same pattern he'd used in the theater. The touch was hypnotic, mesmerizing, and I found myself nodding before I'd consciously made the decision. "Okay," I whispered. His smile was brilliant. "Okay." He'd already gotten a room, of course he had. The elevator ride to the 15th floor was silent but charged, the air between us crackling with anticipation. When the doors opened, I followed him down the hall on unsteady legs, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room was elegant but understated, all clean lines and muted colors. Nolan moved to the window, drawing the curtains closed while I stood near the door, suddenly uncertain. "Second thoughts?" he asked, turning to face me. "Third and fourth thoughts," I admitted. "But I'm still here." He crossed the room slowly, giving me time to change my mind, to run. When he reached me, he cupped my face in his hands, thumbs brushing across my cheekbones. "We don't have to do anything you don't want to do," he said softly. "We can just talk, or watch a movie, or—" I silenced him with a kiss, pouring all my need and fear and desperate hunger into the contact. He responded immediately, his arms coming around me, pulling me against the solid warmth of his body. Unlike the tentative exploration in the theater, this kiss was demanding, consuming, a claiming that left me breathless and aching for more. When we broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. "Are you sure?" he asked again. "Stop asking me that," I murmured against his lips. "I'm here. I'm choosing this." His response was to deepen the kiss, his hands tangling in my hair as he backed me toward the bed. When my legs hit the mattress, I sat down heavily, looking up at him with what I'm sure was naked want written all over my face. He knelt in front of me, hands resting on my knees, eyes searching mine. "Tell me what you need," the simple question undid me completely. When was the last time anyone had asked me what I needed? When had I last been given permission to want something just for myself? "I need to feel beautiful," I whispered. "I need to feel wanted." "You are beautiful," he said, his hands sliding up my thighs. "You are wanted. Let me show you." His touch was reverent as he began to undress me, each piece of clothing removed with care and attention. He pressed kisses to newly exposed skin, murmuring words of appreciation that made me flush with pleasure. By the time I was completely bare before him, I felt like a goddess instead of a neglected wife. "My turn," I said, reaching for the buttons of his shirt. He let me explore, let me set the pace as I mapped the planes and angles of his body. He was beautiful in the way that men could be, all lean muscle and warm skin, scars that told stories I wanted to hear, hands that knew exactly how to touch me. When we finally came together, it was with an intensity that stole my breath. He moved with purpose but not haste, every touch designed to bring me pleasure before seeking his own. It had been so long since I'd felt cherished, adored, that I nearly wept from the overwhelming sensation of being truly seen. We moved together, in perfect synchronization, two people finding solace in each other's arms. When the peak finally claimed us, it was with a force that left us both shaking, clutching each other like anchors in a storm. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. The silence was comfortable, sated, broken only by the distant sounds of the city beyond the windows. "Thank you," I said finally. "For what?" "For reminding me that I'm still alive." His arms tightened around me. "Thank you for letting me." I knew I should leave, should go home to my sleeping husband and pretend this never happened. But the warmth of Nolan's embrace was too tempting, the peaceful quiet too precious to abandon, just yet. "Stay," he murmured, as if reading my thoughts. "Just until morning." So I stayed. And when I woke up in his arms as dawn light filtered through the curtains, I felt more like myself than I had in years. The guilt would come later. I knew that. The questions and the choices and the inevitable reckoning with what I'd done and what it meant. But for now, in this stolen moment between night and day, I was simply Charlotte. Not Wayne's wife or anyone's mother or the woman who'd slowly disappeared into routine and obligation. Just Charlotte, wanted and desired and gloriously, completely alive. The real world was waiting beyond the hotel room door, but for a few more precious minutes, I allowed myself to pretend that this could be my reality, that I could be a woman, who was cherished, who took what she needed, who remembered how extraordinary she was. When I finally slipped out of bed and began to dress, Nolan watched me with sleepy eyes. "Will I see you again?" he asked. I paused in the act of pulling on my shoes, considering the question that would determine everything that came next. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'm glad I came." "So am I." I left him there, warm and rumpled in the hotel bed, and drove home through the early morning streets. Wayne was already in the shower when I slipped back into our bedroom, and I was able to change clothes and start breakfast before he emerged, none the wiser. "You're up early," he commented, grabbing his travel mug from the counter. "Couldn't sleep," I replied, which was true enough. He nodded absently, already scrolling through his phone. "Don't wait up tonight either. I'll probably be at the office until at least 10. "Of course," I murmured, watching him leave without a backward glance. Alone in my kitchen, I poured myself coffee and tried to process what I'd done. The guilt was there, sharp and insistent, but it was overshadowed by something else, a sense of awakening that I wasn't ready to give up. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Last night was perfect. Thank you for trusting me." And I stared at the message for a long time before finally typing back, "Thank you for seeing me." His response was immediate. "I'd like to see you again, when you're ready." I deleted the thread without responding, but I didn't delete his number. And when Wayne came home that night, distracted and tired and barely acknowledging my presence, I found myself thinking about blue eyes and gentle hands and the way it felt to be truly desired. The choice was mine to make. I could go back to being invisible, could settle into the comfortable numbness of a marriage that had died somewhere along the way, or I could remember what it felt like to be alive. Some secrets change everything, don't they? What would you do? If you found yourself in Charlotte's position, stay safe in the familiar, or risk everything for the chance to feel truly alive again? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you up at night thinking. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is exactly what you need most.